Bushio, you piece of shit!
This is Maquette, developed by Graceful Decay and published by Annapurna Interactive. Maquette is a puzzle adventure game set in a recursive world. The player can interact with a small model and see those changes reflected in the larger world. In Maquette, you play Michael as he reminisces about a past relationship with the different areas and chapters resembling different stages in that relationship. The story is a bit too idyllic and formulaic, but it serves its purpose to wrap the game levels in some kind of structure. The puzzles start simple and never really progress beyond. The vast majority of puzzles require the player to either shrink or enlarge an object and place it somewhere in the environment to progress. While the aha moments can be very satisfying, there are far too many puzzles that boil down to lever pulls or some kind of platforming, which detracts from the game's core mechanic. The recursion mechanic is really interesting, but ultimately is never really explored in depth. The later chapters do begin to get more abstract, but I feel this progression should have started much earlier. Maquette is also fairly short. Even for a first time run, it won't take very long to get through, and I do feel this does a further disservice to what could have been a brain-bending puzzle mechanic. Maquette starts interesting, but inevitably feels like more of a proof of concept than a complete puzzle experience. I think the game would have benefited from 1 or 2 more chapters to further flesh out the recursive elements. Maquette is available on PC, PS4 and PS5. Cool fact. Every day was romantic. No, it wasn't. I don't think we ever did the boring old get drinks in a bar routine. No, you did the get drinks in a coffee shop routine instead. This is Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy, developed by Gust and published by Koei Tecmo. Atelier Ryza 2 is a crafting JRPG and the sequel to Atelier Ryza Everdarkness and the Secret Hideout, previously featured on the channel. Atelier Ryza 2 is set a year after the events of Atelier Ryza 1 and sees Ryza travelling to the big city to try and make it as an alchemist. She reunites with her old friends and party members and makes a few new ones along the way. You also resurrect a long-lost species of fairy that may or may not lead to end-of-the-world shenanigans. The gameplay is very similarly to the original. Gameplay is split between combat, alchemy, and general exploration. Combat has received the largest improvements, leading to a more dynamic and involved combat experience. Previously, the player could chain melee attacks together to make a combo. Atelier Ryza 2 allows the player now to sub in skills and abilities into the chain, leading to a larger variety of combos. The game also adds a perfect parry system, allowing the player to take less damage if they time their defense correctly. The alchemy system has received some changes in quality of life improvements. A lot of the trial and error of learning new recipes has been removed with a simpler shop-like system for gaining new recipes. Players earn alchemy currency by performing alchemy and can use this currency to then purchase or learn new recipes. Atelier Ryza 2 is a very chill, very low-stakes JRPG with a sometimes grinding alchemy system, though the grinding is only apparent if you are attempting to 100% complete the game. Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends and the Secret Fairy is available on PC, PS4 and Nintendo Switch. This is Yakuza Like a Dragon, developed by Ryuga Gotoku Studio and published by Sega. Yakuza Like a Dragon is the latest entry in the Yakuza series and the first to star a new protagonist. You play Ichiban Kazuga who, similar to previous series star Kazuma Kiryu, volunteers for imprisonment to shield his Yakuza family and on release finds himself ostracized and ignored by the only family he has ever known. Ichiban refuses to accept this new reality and attempts to get back into the Yakuza, but eventually finds himself homeless on the streets of Yokohama with a near-fatal gunshot wound. What follows then is Ichiban befriending other down and outs and coming to terms with his new life, with the typical Yakuza whiplash between zany hijinks and deep pathos. Another change new to the series is turn-based combat. Ichiban sees himself as a hero like from the Dragon Quest series of games, and this filters into the way he fights. Or perhaps the way he interprets fights. Rather than real-time combat, Ichiban and friends take turns in combat, mimicking systems from Dragon Quest or older Final Fantasies and other JRPG titles. The turn-based combat is fun, with each character taking on an archetypical JRPG role like healer or warrior, etc. I am not very far in Yakuza Like a Dragon, but I am enjoying it and see a lot of the same trappings of the Yakuza series that made it popular. Like a Dragon also serves as a good jumping on point for the series as it takes on a new direction. Yakuza Like a Dragon is available on PC, PS4 and 5, and Xbox One and Series.
Stop! Don't open it!
Hey, how's it going? Well, Namba-san, you tried to play nice, but you know what? Fuck these guys.
This is Outriders, developed by People Can Fly and published by Square Enix. Outriders is a cooperative shooter RPG with loot drops, playable with up to 3 people. Earth is gone and the remnants of humanity are relocating to Enoch. You play an Outrider, tasked with scouting the new planet and preparing the landing area. However, things quickly go awry as a massive electrical storm rips through the landing site. The storm kills most of your crew but leaves you altered and practically immortal. Then, for some reason, you are cryogenically frozen. You emerge some 30 years later and Enoch has become a war zone. You are drafted by what remains of your old crew. But first, you have to pick what flavor of altered you want to be. There are 4 classes to choose from, each specializing in some element of combat. The Machinist creates turrets and freezes enemies. The Trickster teleports and slows time. The Devastator creates seismic shocks and has a lot of armor. And finally, the Pyromancer, as you might expect, dies constantly because it's weak. Each class has unique abilities that can be further supplemented and specialized in your class's tree, and there can be a lot of fun in min-maxing and tailoring your class to your liking. Your abilities and skills can be even further customized through the large modding library. Each piece of equipment in the game can be easily modded to your preference, from simple mods like adding additional damage, weapons that damage when they reload, to more complex mods that alter the effects of your core skills. The mod library is extensive and a lot of fun to tinker with. There are no health pickups in Outriders, nor is there hiding in a corner to regenerate. While each class has specific requirements for healing, they can be summed up as, you need to kill to live. You can only regain health by defeating or damaging enemies, forcing the player to play aggressively and largely stay out in the open, rushing down the enemy. Outriders takes a lot of inspiration from Destiny, but sets itself apart with a large mod library and deep customization of the 4 base classes. However, it does falter in enemy variety. Human enemies are palette swaps with the same 5 enemy types. Different names and clothes, but the same behavior, and beast type enemies don't bother with palette swapping. It shares the same issues when it comes to weapons and equipment. The loot drop variety is far too limited for the number of pieces you acquire. You will routinely collect the same legendary weapon or armor piece multiple times. Much like Destiny, it does not have enough variety in equipment to have a loot system. The plot of Outriders can also be frustrating, as it sets up some interesting concepts and story beats but then discards them almost as quickly. And much like most action RPGs, there is no actual role-playing in the game. You have no choice in how your character behaves or what direction they take in the story. It doesn't help that your character is probably a sociopath. While I like the depth of customization between ability choice, class tree tweaks, and equipment mods, I was disappointed with the lackluster bullet sponge enemies, the dropped plot points, and the lack of equipment variety. Outriders is available on PC, PS4 and 5, and Xbox One and Series. Those were some of the games that released in March 2021. Yakuza is fun, and the new combat mechanic, the turn-based combat mechanic, is interesting to play with, and it's refreshing to see a typically action-heavy developer to see their viewpoint on it. That being said, I haven't played a lot of Like a Dragon, so who knows how well it holds up later down the line, but judging by the critical consensus and the Yakuza series pedigree in general, I imagine it holds up pretty well. Atelier Ryza 2 looks like more of Atelier Ryza 1, basically. I really enjoyed the alchemy parts of Atelier Ryza, not too much the combat section, though the sequel has gotten a lot of combat improvements, and the alchemy has been a lot more streamlined. But again, not a lot of time playing on that. You might see a pattern starting to develop here. On the other hand, Maquette I actually finished, probably because it's really short. There's a great puzzle mechanic there at the heart of the game. I just feel they don't leverage it enough, and the more interesting puzzle segments are a bit too late in the game. And finally, Outriders, which technically came out in April, but you know, don't give me any shit, it was April 1st. I'm not sure if Outriders knows what kind of game it wants to be. You know, if People Can Fly know what kind of game Outriders wants to be, because it has the trappings of a cooperative shooter, but then it has a bunch of stuff that you would typically find in a live action game, in a live service game. The mod library, the class customization, your ability customization is all really, really nice. The game world and the game story the game aesthetics are just the complete opposite direction for me. It's just grimy and ugly, and the story just keeps stopping and starting. Anyway, next month's games, although the video might show up a little faster than that, we'll be looking at new Pokemon Snap, which is a kind of chill Pokemon safari kind of game where you just take pictures of Pokemon and have a good chill time. The complete opposite of that, Nier Replicant, which is a remake of the original Nier game. So it's still taking the same story of the original Nier, but it's slapped on the combat mechanics of Nier Automata. So the kind of one of the bigger sticking points of the original Nier is that it was a great story, but not that fun to play. So having a nicer gameplay and combat should hopefully help that reach a few more people. And also the story is devastating, is probably one way to put it. If you played Nier Automata, you'll probably know that it's a sad story, tragic. Also, we'll be looking at Returnal, the hotness on PS5. I'm still kind of miffed that they've never really fixed in quotation marks, the save mechanics for Returnal, because it's a roguelike, but each run goes on for hours, so you're kind of forced to suspend the PlayStation 5 console to kind of, take a break or whatever. Whereas most roguelikes, a run would take you max 1 hour, so it's kind of annoying. I really don't like that, but we'll see how it actually feels when I get a chance to actually sit down and play it. And then the last game is kind of a fun one. It's called Say No More, and it's a bit of a slapstick fun physics game where you just yell no at people and they explode or get launched out windows and stuff like that. It's kind of a silly comedy game that I've been looking at, and I just find the trailers really funny, so I just want to see how it actually plays. Elsewhere on the channel, there were a few videos or longer videos for a couple of the games in this video. So there was a Foley Plays Outriders for a bit, and there was a Foley Plays Maquette for a bit. Yakuza and Atelier Ryza they take a very long time to get going. It's hard to tell where I can jump in and just show off a video of it. Possibly in the future, if there is interest from other people, if they want to see that, I might make that happen. Also, I have started a Let's Play of A Plague Tale Innocence. Part 1 should be up on the channel at the moment, and Part 2 should be following very shortly. Hopefully you can check that out if you want to see more shenanigans from me. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Games of April, hopefully a little bit faster this time, because we are very much having to invent a time machine to go back for some of these games. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.